Hello and welcome to another video, and today it is the 27th of August, so we have a lot of news to get into now. In the Kherson region, there was an announcement by the Deputy Prime Minister Irina Vereshchuk, which will not only affect the Kherson region, but also affect the Mykolaiv region, the Zaporizhia region, and the Kharkiv region. So basically, there's going to be a mandatory evacuation from certain villages within these oblasts, probably the ones that are closer to the front lines. And this could be seen as a humanitarian gesture, but there are some other ulterior motives as well. So, first of all, you want to evacuate civilians from the front lines, obviously, because you don't want any collateral damage. Another reason is you want to place military positions and hardware within the civilian areas, and having civilians there does hamper that. And there's also the supply problem. It's very bad for logistics when you have all these supplies, when you have all these civilians within these towns. You just want to have a command structure centered within these villages without any worries about the well-being of the civilians, having to feed them or anything. So moving them out is also a pretty good strategy. But in terms of moving out civilians, that might also be just a way to kick people out of their homes before Russia could take over. So, first of all, Ukraine can maintain their population since they've lost by now like more than 10 million people from their pre-war population. When you add in all the people that are living in Zaporizhia, Kherson, and the Kharkiv regions that were taken, and also the LPR and DPR regions, when you take that into account, and also all the people who left Ukraine as refugees, then Ukraine does have a major demographic problem that has to be addressed, and they don't want the pro-Russian civilians to um, be under Russian control. Obviously, they want to keep those people within Ukrainian territory. So anyway, let's get into the frontline news. Ukraine shelled the Novakakovka bridge again, and there was a very gruesome video that I can't show on here, um, taken by some guy, and it does show that a convoy was probably passing by the bridge at the time of the shelling, so it was good timing by the Ukrainian artillery, and it did show like some dead bodies, and there was a lot of impacts from the shelling onto the bridge, and there was some destroyed military trucks and equipment. I'm not sure if the bridge is operational anymore. They have to do renovations there now just to repair everything. In addition to this, satellite imagery also did show that the Antonovsky Bridge was targeted by maybe it was HIMARS or some other MLRS system, but either way, the satellite imagery did show that there was some impact on the southern side of the bridge, and there was no traffic reported in the area as a result. Nobody's using the bridge now. It has to be repaired, and there's progress being made in terms of building the pontoon bridge, which is now pretty much a necessity because they don't want to get their supplies totally cut off. Now let's get into some other news from the front lines around here. So, ever since the taking of Blahodatne, Russia has really ramped up their artillery strikes along the front lines on many of these towns that are being used as defense nodes. And this is probably an attempt to wear down their defenses, especially in the area around here in this polygon, because this is one of the more heavily entrenched polygons. You have a lot of defenses west of this Bilozirka River, on these several chains of towns over here. They have some very good defensive positions, which is why Russia is just taking their time, clearing through the minor towns and the open fields, which are actually harder to take than the towns themselves in some instances, because you're just open to massive fire from your opponents. Now, in the area in southern Kherson, around the border between Mykolaiv and Kherson. The AFU, they sent units from the 206th Separate Battalion to the parts south of Lupareve. So they're probably stationed around here, and this is probably how the front line actually looks like. But I don't mean to be pedantic. And they're just doing this to set up a defensive position right south of Lubareve, around, first of all, these few houses around here and the farmland. So they're prepared for an impending assault towards Lubareve, which will be difficult to take. I've talked about this before. It is pretty dense in comparison to some of the other towns around here, but it is necessary to take over this town in order to advance along this highway over here towards Mykolaiv itself. In addition to this, the Russians, they hit a communications post of the 28th unit, or 28th detachment of the armed forces of Ukraine in this town over here, Fribuske. In addition to this, Ukraine is fortifying its positions around this town here called Mirny. And I know the map does show that it's under Russian control. The reason why is because it's so minuscule, I didn't even pay attention to it, so I didn't even mark it on the map. But understandably, it is under the control of Ukraine, so I would have to change that so the map looks more like this, I would say. And they are fortifying this because in order to take Posad Pokrovske, taking Mirny would be a pretty good idea in order to flank the Ukrainian positions and then, attack from the east. Because Posad Pokrovske, that's one of the main final villages that's still under control of Ukraine in the Kherson region. So Russia will probably make a move on here. And another thing about this town is that is important is that it's one of the main towns along the road to the southern outskirts of Mykolaiv, and you could reach the airport in the southeastern part of Mykolaiv by going through that highway. Ukraine reported that they killed 24 Russian troops in artillery strikes and destroyed 3 Giasent guns, 2 Smerch multiple rocket launchers, Pion artillery systems, Nona mortar system, 1 ammo depot, and 5 military vehicles. And they weren't very specific as to where this occurred, but they did mention that there were some strikes on Novopetrivka, which is this town over here, and on Olhine, which confirms that it's under Russian control, despite a lot of other maps showing that it's under Ukraine control. Russia, in terms of the casualties that they have inflicted on Ukraine, they report they've killed in the past day 40 plus people, destroyed 3 command posts, 1 fuel warehouse, 2 Giasent B field guns, and they say that their air defense systems shot down 2 UAVs and intercepted a Tochka-U missile and 2 MLRS rockets. Now, the final thing that I want to mention from the Kherson front that occurred like right before the recording of the video is that it was reported that Ukrainian troops tried to cross the Inhulets River again around the Andriivka-Lazov area. I don't know how many times they can do this. It sort of reminds me of the Russian attempts at crossing the Severodonetsk River, which it did end up working when they crossed Privilia, but for in May when they tried doing it, they failed and their pontoon bridges weren't that successful. So this is very similar in regards to the fact that every single day they're trying again and again, and each time they just get pushed back from the Inhulets River. It's not a good strategy. It's just wasting more men. So the assault failed, of course, and Russia reports that they lost that they had 130 casualties And this didn't happen yesterday, it happened today, which is why I didn't mention it in the casualty list that was announced by Russia. And they also said that 20 units of military equipment of the AFU was destroyed. Now, let's move on to Crimea, where there was a video yesterday of the Pantsir air defense system engaging Ukrainian drones in over the town of Novuzerne, and it appears that they were shot down and that there was no damage done to the infrastructure in the area. But the fact that there are even drones flying around Crimea is a problem. I would say it's pretty clear by now that Ukraine is sending in units deep into Crimea, and then from there they're operating these drones, because I doubt these drones would have such a like long range that they'd be able to fly all the way into Crimea. But at least this incident didn't do much damage. Near the Crimean Bridge, there was a video showing a lot of military hardware being transported via train towards the front line. It showed T-72 and T-80 tanks being transported, in addition to many self-propelled howitzers and armored vehicles, trucks, and sapper machines. And this convoy is making its way to the front lines now. Now let's talk about the Zaporizhia situation, which has sort of improved because the internet connection is back up, and it's back to like August 25th levels, which is it's a start. The Zaporizhia authorities, they reported that Ukraine shelled the first of all, an Enerhodar, they shelled it last night, and that they shelled the Zaporizhia power plant, in that they were using M777s, in that machine guns were also utilized, and they fired across the river with them. So what they're saying is that there was a fire that developed 30 meters from the dry storage at the spent nuclear fuel facility within the Zaporizhia power plant, and that's near building number 2. So that's dangerously close to the facility itself, and luckily it didn't get any closer, and I'm probably thinking that the fire has already been extinguished by now, because there hasn't been any further elaboration on the situation there in a few hours. But the Energoatom, the company that's in control of the power plant, they say that the second power unit was reconnected to the Ukrainian grid, so that's good for Ukrainian energy situation. And the International Atomic Energy Agency, they will probably be inspecting this power plant early next week. Now, let's move on. No groundbreaking news from the fronts around the Vuhledar, or even the Marinka Pesky front. In Avdiivka, there was some videos of shelling, and this is commonplace. Again, this is their strategy, the DPR and Russian strategy, just to shell them into oblivion. And eventually, their defenses will crack, and then they can pursue an advance. But I don't see any advance occurring near Avdiivka, and for a while. Now, in the area around Bakhmut and Zaitsev, there was some assaults near Kodema, just as an attempt to reach this town over here, Kurdyumivka, and it's still ongoing, so we don't have any news. But the assault is continuing towards this town over here. They want to, first of all, secure the heights around here, and first of all, take Mykolaievka Druha, reaching this road over here, and then pushing forward towards this other road around here, and occupying this strategic town, which is being used as a logistical hub, and as like a command center for the units that are fighting on the Kadema Bakhmut line. It has been shelled pretty heavily over the past few days, and I would say it is part of Russia's goal to secure these two towns over here, the one that I talked about already, and then this other one here, Ozaryannivka. Once these two towns are taken, there's a very good chance that, first of all, there could be more assaults towards Toretsk, and again, assaults towards the southern outskirts of Bakhmut. But no real developments besides that. The fighting in Kadema is slowly shifting towards this church over here, and I would say once this church falls, you can see some advances around here on this warehouse and along the shopping mall, and by then they'd basically be kicked out of the city and defenses would crumble. But I would say for now, Ukraine is holding out. Clearly, they have been able to maintain this front line. In the area around Berestove, there was a video geolocated to the road around here, Nahirne to Seversk. It showed mortars shelling the Ukrainian positions, and I had previously thought that Russia was in control of this area over here, so I had to adjust that based on the video that was geolocated to this position. In addition, I had to make some changes around the Ivano-Darivka area, and I might have to make some around Rukno-Kamyanske because the situation there is pretty ambiguous. Most people say that Ukraine controls it, and the front line looks more like this. So I'll have to look into that. Ukraine did report an attack towards Hrihorivka, but they said it was unsuccessful. And there was some major shelling of Slavyansk yesterday, and just some heavy damage to some military facilities and military infrastructure within the town. In addition to this all, there was reports of a MiG-29 being shot down near Malinovka in the Kharkiv area. I'll try to find where Malinovka is located. I'm pretty sure it's near Kharkiv, just like south of it a little bit. If I can't find it, then I apologize. But they were saying that a MiG-29 was shot down, and that the Russians that they destroyed one Buk M1 surface-to-air missile system, and there wasn't a location given for this, unfortunately. And there was a video that Russian sources released of an S-300 radar system that got destroyed by Russian kamikaze drones in the area around Barvenkov. Now, let's move on to the front around Kharkiv. So Ukraine is fortifying their position around Pitomnik, which I have marked as contested, but most of it is obviously still under Ukrainian control around here, and they are fortifying the defensive positions around here. In addition to this, the Ukrainians, they're utilizing the Puma drones that I've talked about before, and it's being said by Russian sources that they are centered around Luska Lazova, and that from this position they can be used to look at a lot of Russian positions around the front line around here. And then the information that they get about Russian transfers and movement can be used to assist the command center or in Kharkiv, in the city itself. The Ukrainians, they reported a failed assault by Russia on Dementivka. I do have Dementivka as under Russian control, but perhaps that's not the case. There is a lot of ambiguity in regards to this town and some of the other towns around Kharkiv, such as Boryshchova or Sosnivka or even Supivka. A lot of these towns are contested by both sides. In addition to this, there were some major airstrikes and shelling of the Sumy and Chernihiv regions, although we don't exactly know what was targeted. This was just reported by the Russian side. The final thing that I want to mention is that Russia reported that they launched a successful strike on the Dnipro region, and they say it was on the town over here. I'll try to find it. This town over here, Preobrazhenka, and they say that they targeted a ammo depot with HIMARS rockets and M777 shells, and then there was some extensive damage done to the depot and to the munitions. Now, where would this be? Maybe it was in this warehouse over here, or this one over here. But I didn't see any videos of it. I'm hoping that Russia releases some sort of footage to prove this. But yeah, that's it for today. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you later.